Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create FortiGate HA high availability using SDN Connector. Now, if you look at this topology here, you will see that we have the FortiGate device here. We have another FortiGate device here. We have the internet. Of course, we have the Google Cloud Platform, which is the GCP. This is basically GCP. We have zone 1, zone 2, but in the GCP, they are in the same region. You have the traffic from the internet going to the unprotected network on port 1. We have the LAN going through the protected private network on port 2. Then we have the we have the HA sync, the HA sync network, which is on port 3, which is basically what these two FortiGate devices are using. Then we have the HA management. The HA management is another way you can basically manage the device if you're not managing it using the public network interface. So you can manage the device using the HA management. The HA management will have access to the internet, so will as in the unprotected public network. So that will also have access to the internet. The HA sync will not have access to the internet, and the private network will be routing traffic through the public network to get to the internet. So this is basically how the topology for the HA would look. So we will have two FortiGate devices, and then we will have four network interfaces. So two FortiGate devices, four network interfaces, and that is exactly how we're going to deploy this particular um, HA setup. Now, of course, HA basically means high availability. In this scenario here, we would only be able to deploy the HA between these two FortiGate devices in um, active passive mode. So it's not going to be in active mode, it's going to be in active passive mode. All right, let's begin. So I'm going to create, let's go to the VPC network. We're going to need four network. Like you can see here, we have the protected, we have the unprotected, protected, HA sync, and HA management. We're going to need those four interfaces. So we could use this two that we already have. We already have two network VPCs, or you could just create yours. It's basically your choice. So if we choose to create another one, all you just need to just do is just create VPC and then name it whatever you want to name it. In this case here, we can say HA sync, and then for the subnets we call it HA sync subnets. Now the region will be, in this case, the region that is closest to you. I'm using US Central 1. I'm going to be using 192.168.205.0/24. Everything will remain the same. Click done and then click create. So it's a very straightforward way to create VPC. Create the next VPC. HA management, HA management subnet. You can give this any name you want. The name of your VPC can be a network interface card, and the name of your subnet can be anything you want it to be. It's just for you to identify what it is. So I'm going to use US Central 1 again, and 192.168.2 10.0/24 done creates. Now, once your VPCs are created, notice in this case we have 4 VPC: the external, the internal, the HA sync, and the HA management, which is similar to this. The external is the unprotected network here, the internal is a protected network, the HA sync is the one in between them, and then the HA management is the one that goes back to the internet. So what we're going to do is to make sure that we what's it called? We allow the each of these to have the way, as in the access to the internet. Like for example, the unprotected network has access to the internet. HS management has access to the internet. We're going to do that, and then HS sync and protected network doesn't have access to the internet. We're going to do that as well. We're also going to create firewall rules. Also, we're going to create ingress rule. We're going to create egress rule also. So we're going to go to the VPC network, and then we're going to click firewall. Now in this case here, we're going to create firewall rule. We have firewall rule already that I've created in the previous video for the external ingress and external egress and ingress. That this is it here, which I basically just allow all for training purposes. I did the same thing for internal ingress and internal egress as well, just allowing all as well. I was using 985. I'm going to do the same thing. So this is what I did to create those two rules. So click create firewall rule. We're going to call this HA sync ingress 985. You choose the network interface, which is HA sync. Make sure the direction is on ingress. Make sure it's matching action on match is allowed. Change the target from specified target tags to all instance, and then we're gonna do any, in this case allow all. Click create. If you watch my previous video, you will see where I actually put a disclaimer that in a production environment you do not just allow everything to just go in and out. You need to narrow it down. So for training purposes, we're just going to just limit it. So HA, we're not going to limit it, we're just going to just generalize it. So HA sync egress network, it's using HA sync. The priority is 985. We're choosing the direction of traffic to egress. We're changing the target to all instance. And now in destination, it's also going to be any, which is 0/0/0/0.0.0.0/0. And then we'll choose all ports and all protocols. We'll do the same thing for HA management as well. So create HA management firewall rule for ingress. HA management. The priority 985. The source from anywhere. All protocols, all ports. Then finally we'll create the egress rule. HA management egress. Now, I explained in my previous video, for those who haven't seen that it's a lot better to only allow the network that you want this to go to. If you're going to allow all, you can also limit the ports that are allowed as well, than just to allow any to go through everything. So please be careful, especially when the traffic is coming ingress. The ingress is much more dangerous than the egress. Egress is just going out, but in ingress you need to limit your ingress to some specific one than just opening all the ingress. Now, if you look at the default thing that came, what's it called, with some of the deployment I did in the past. So here you can see the ingress. They only allow for 22. They allow for ingress. They allow for 3000 for ingress. They allow for 443. For ingress, they allow for 541. So ingress is actually where your main concern is, not the egress. Ingress. Okay. So the next thing we're gonna do is, once you've created your firewall rules, let's basically filter that. We actually use a priority 985. So now these are the firewall rules I have. I have for external egress, external ingress, HA management egress, HA management ingress, HA sync egress, HA sync ingress, internal egress, and internal egress. All of them are configured the same way, so allowing every traffic to go in. Like I said, your ingress should not be this generalized. You should limit it to just specific ports. Not everything should have access to your ingress. But for training purposes, we're just going to leave it this way. So the next thing we're going to do, once your firewall rule are created, we've created the VPC, we've created the firewall. The next thing we're going to do is to then deploy the FortiGates. To deploy the FortiGates, we just go to the Marketplace, and we're going to deploy the FortiGates firewall. We're going to use the pay-as-you-go, which has a 30-day trial license. So for this is very good. You can use the BYOL by using your own license. But for this training purpose, we're going to use a trial one. Now remember that we were using US Central. So we have 4 zones. Now please note there is a difference between region and zone. US Central 1 is a region, while US Central 1A, B, C, and F is a zone. So if I say this, my FortiGates FGT HA1 should be in US Central 1C, it's my choice. Now, remember that we created 4 VPC interfaces. Now, this VM here, the machine type here, can only support 2 network interfaces. Let me just show you that so that you understand what I'm saying. So here on the external, we have the external already, which is using the external subnet. We click done, then we click add interface, and then you choose the internal, and then internal subnet, you click done. And if you add interface again, and then you want to choose HA sync, you click done. Then you see this error message. So you need a machine type with at least 3 CPUs to use 3 network interfaces. So if we choose HA sync as the last one, or even just change this one to HA sync, and then change the last one to management. Now we have 4. It's saying you need at least 4 CPUs to use 4 networking. So what we're going to do is to come to machine type, change to custom. There are defaults, but you can use this, like this one here that has 4 CPU, 15 gig memory. You could use that, or you could just say custom, I need 4 CPUs. That's the most important thing, and then 5 gig RAM should be enough for this purpose. So notice that the error is gone. So that's what you need to do. Of course, when you do that, it basically comes up with this error. What I normally would do is I just make sure that before changing my network interfaces, let's start from the zone again. Before changing my network interfaces, I basically just switch over to custom, specified number of CPUs, and then I go down, and then I had the network interfaces. So this one, I normally don't come up with an error. Now notice something, that my internal does not have an external IP. That's what you do. And HA sync, which is the third one, does not also have an external IP. However, your HA management will have an external IP just the same way with your external VPC. So now HA management, just like in this diagram here, where you have the HA management going back to the internet or being reachable from the internet, and then the public also going to the internet or being reachable from the internet. That's why you'll need to make sure that the HA management external IP is set to ephemeral. So then we can scroll down. Notice there's no error in this case. And these are the things that are the ports that are allowed. So if you're using ingress rule, this port must be allowed on your firewall. Port 22, 443, 80, 541, 3000, and 8080. So you click deploy. It's a very straightforward process to deploy. Now, while that is deploying, we can actually create a new one. Go to the navigation menu, open the Marketplace. We'll choose the pay as you go so we can get a free trial. We'll launch that. In this case here, we could use US Central. We used C earlier. We could use A. We could use F. So let's just use A, or we could use F. Well, it's your choice. So let's use F. The next thing we'll do is to change this to custom and then set this to 4 CPUs because we have 4 network interfaces, remember. So 5 RAM, 5 gig RAM. External is fine. We had the internal. We add the HA sync, and then we had the HA management. The HA management will have an external IP as well. And then we'll click deploy. Now, while this is deploying, we'll check on the first one. As we can see, the first one is ready. We'll wait for the second one. So this is also done as well. So we have the HA1 deployed, we have the HA2 deployed as well. Now, if you watch my previous video, you remember I said that if you click on the address of HA1 or HA2, it takes about 5 minutes for the IP address to be available. So if you go back to the deployment, you see this was deployed 3 minutes ago. The other one was 2 minutes ago. So just give it some time. The same thing here. If I click on this, notice it's basically still not opening. So just give it some time to get to 5 minutes. Once it's on 5 minutes, it's going to open. That's as at the time of this recording. That's basically how GCP basically works for those public IP address deployment for the FortiGate admin URL. So on the deployment, we deployed HA2. Deployed. Okay, I thought I renamed this HA1. Okay, because I refreshed the page, I probably forgot to change the name. That's fine. So this is my HA1. This is my HA2. That's fine. So these are the two FortiGates that I have. You can refresh to see how long it's been deployed. And you can see this has been deployed 4 minutes and this has been deployed 3 minutes. If I go back here and I refresh, it's still not going to open. So just going to give it 1 more minute. Okay, now this is good. So if I refresh this now, watch this. See, 5 minutes. At 5 minutes, it basically will just open. So that's the way that works. So if I go back there and then refresh this, this is currently at 3 minutes. If I refresh this IP, it's still not ready. So the next thing we'll do is while that one is getting ready, we click on the first one, copy the admin temporary password, click accept, The username is admin. Paste the admin password that you copied earlier. Paste it in the old password. Create your own new password. Click OK. And you can now log in. Click begin. I'm not migrating from for as configuration with FortiConverter, so I'm just going to click later. You can enable automatic patch. In my case, I'm going to disable and do the patch myself. You could set your dashboard to optimal or comprehensive. I'm going to use optimal in this case. I'm going to disable this video, but you can watch this 3-minute video to see the new features for this particular version of the iOS. So if we go back to deployment and then we refresh this, we should have about, this is about 4 minutes. If we refresh this, notice it's still not opening. Once it's 5 minutes, it then opens. So let's go back there, refresh. Notice it's 5 minutes, notice it already opened. So that's exactly what I was trying to say. It takes about 5 minutes to open. So now go back to HA2, copy the temporary password. Paste it there. Username is admin. Paste the temporary password in the old password. Type your own new password. Click OK. Now log in and repeat the same step we just did earlier. Click begin. I don't want to see this again. Click later. I don't want automatic update. I'm sure. And then I want optimal dashboard. Then I don't want to see this again, and that's what we do. So this is a very straightforward steps. So with this, we are be able to configure the FortiGates. So with 4 network interfaces, and you can see we have interface. We have 4 interfaces. What I like to do is name the interface like as you can see in the diagram. You have the unprotected, protected, HA sync, HA management. Name the interface based on what they are so that you can identify what each of them are. So this is my one interface, which is my port 1. I can call it 1. I can call it external. It's whatever you want to call it. So let's just call it 1. Click OK. Then port 2 is my LAN. Call it LAN. We can enable ping for now. We're still going to make some changes again to this interface, but for now, let's just do the naming first. Port 3 is my HA sync. This helps you when you're doing some configuration to know which ports you're choosing. So next one is HA management. For HA management, because I need to reach it out from outside as well, I turn on HTTPS. You can turn on SSH if you want as well. So I'll do the same thing for the other device. One or 2 is LAN. Or 3 HA sync. Port 4 HA management. So the changes we have here is the same changes we have here. Let's change the name of the FortiGates so we know which device we are on. System, setting, the name, FGT HA1, apply. Oops, I was on the wrong one. This is HA2. This is HA1. system settings, name that HA1. So I have my HA1 and HA2 deployed. Let me see. 245. 245. Okay, 245. Yeah, this is HA2. Good. All right. So just want to make sure that I got the name right. Okay, so I do not need to have the deployment manager page anymore. I'm already done. I have everything I need. But for now, we're still going to leave one page because we're still going to be using the GCP to make some changes. So for now, what we've done is we've set up, let me refresh this, we've set up our FortiGates. We renamed the interfaces, we renamed the device so we know what device we're on. We've deployed using the marketplace, using the deployment manager. We're using the pay-as-you-go. And these are the simple steps that you need to go through. The next thing we're going to do is there are some important steps that you need to follow to make this work. All your interfaces need to what's it called? Need to be how do I put it now? You need to have static IP on them. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the LAN and change the LAN to manual. Click OK. The HA sync to manual as well. I can change the submask of this to 254. I mean /24. That's what I meant to say. HA management manual. Okay. Now notice I did not touch the 1/1. The reason for that is because you need your static routes for you to change the 1. So do this first before you change your 1. The 1, which is this, has a default gateway, which is going to be the first IP address in this subnet here. The first IP address is .1. Click OK. So if you want to then change the 1, you can then change the 1 to static. So all you just do is just change it to static and click OK. So notice I still have access to my equipment. So all I did was change the configure the static routes for the 1 interface, and then I changed the everything is on static instead of DHCP. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So do the same thing on this secondary one. Start with LAN 2. Don't do the 1 first. Start with LAN 2. The question is, why can't I do the LAN first? Yes, I mean the 1 first. You have to do the static route if you want to do the 1 first. So that's why I start with LAN 2. For 3, I'm going to use /24 here. For 4, you will see why we're using /24 there when we start doing some configuration. For now, this is what we'll do. Then we'll go to static routes, create static routes to go anywhere using the 1 interface. And the first IP address in that subnet is basically the first IP, which is going to be .1. Copy again. I don't see myself copying that. That's the 4. I keep copying 4. But anyway, 1 is actually the gateway. Okay, paste that. Click OK. So let's just be sure. Yeah, it's a 20. Okay, good. So now we can change the 1 now to manual. Click OK. So this is all you need to do. It's a very straightforward process. Make sure that your HA management, you can reach it using HTTPS. Once you do all this, the next thing that you then need to do is we then begin to configure the H the HA. The HA is a very, as in that's the next step that we need to configure. We need to allow the FortiGate to be able to fail over between the two devices. But before we go into the HA, one of the other things that you need to do is that you need to reserve the IP addresses for the FortiGate. You will need to reserve the IP addresses for the internal and for the external as well, because the SDN connector wants to make sure that the IP address are static, they're not changing, because when you use ephemeral, they're going to be changing. So what we're going to do briefly is we're going to go to Compute Engine, VM instance, choose the first FortiGate, click Edit, then scroll down. I'm going to change the internal IP. This is the internal IP, primary internal. For the external, we'll change it to static. You can call this anything you want. You can say external static 1. It's your choice of naming. The external IP also, we're going to reserve external IP as well. Click reserve external IP. We're going to say external IP1. And then click done. We're going to do the same for internal. We're just going to reserve this. There's nothing here to reserve, so we're going to reserve this. Done. HA sync also the same thing. There's no external IP. We're just going to reserve this. Done. For HA management, we have the internal and the external that we're going to reserve. And then click done, click save. That's all we need to do. So we then go to the secondary device while this is saving. We go to VM, the secondary one, click edit, and repeat the same step. We do not need to reserve the one for the we do not need to reserve the external for the secondary, the external IP. We just leave it on the ephemeral. We only do this one for the internal. So we're reserving the internal. The reason why we don't do that is because it's going to be using one single IP address anyway, so there's no point reserving an external IP address for the secondary one. It's going to be fading over to the other one, so don't worry. But I'm going to show you why we don't use it eventually. So now the next one we do is the HA sync. And then the final one. HA management. Notice we left this one the way it is for now because we're still going to take those things off eventually. So now for now, we'll leave it this way. Click save. Only the primary one is the one we change. We reserve an IP address on that interface. So for now, we're just going to leave. Actually, that's not accurate. So let's go back there. For the HA management, you need to reserve because we need the HA management to be reachable at all times. Sorry, it's the external that you don't reserve. So external, we reserve this one for HA management. So this allows to reach the external management interface using the public IP address. This will be fixed. So this allows to manage this VM, the FortiGate VM, whether it's in HA mode or not, whether the primary one is the active one or not. So that's, but we do not do it on the external of the one or the unprotected. That we don't change this. We just leave this way. We're going to still change this again to none eventually. Now we've done the address reservation. Once the address has been reserved, the next thing we're then going to do is to try to establish HA. But before we establish HA, there are two things that we need to do. One, we need to create a route. Two, we need to create a service account. To create a route, we go to the menu, we go to VPC Network, we go to routes, and then we go to route management. Now you can see that I already have a route here that I call FGT route. This was from my previous training. I could basically delete it and recreate it. What I'm basically going to just remove that and then recreate it. So I'm going to recreate it. To recreate, click on route. I'm going to call this FGT SDN routes. Note this name. This name is very important. This name, we're going to use this name in our SDN configuration. So FGT SDN routes is actually our internal interface. The next thing is we're going to use the destination, any. The priority, you can leave the priority the way it is. You can reduce the priority number to whatever number you want. Then the next thing we're going to do is the next up. The next up is going to be the specify IP address of an instance, which we're specifying the internal IP address of the primary HA. The internal IP address of the primary HA. That is going to be the next up address. Let's see what we have. Why don't I have access to that one? Yeah, reason why I don't have access to this one is because the moment we change the external IP reservation, the IP address already changed. So let me just quickly jump to the VM and figure out the new IP address, because once you reserve, the IP address will change. So let's look at the new IP address. The new IP address for this one has changed to this IP. So copy that, go to that browser, paste it there. This is the new IP. Notice that. So that is because once you reserve an IP address, it will then begin to use the new IP address. So that's one thing about reserving an IP address. So the IP address has already changed in this case. It didn't change for this one, but it changed for this one. So we're looking for the internal IP address, which is the LAN, which is this particular IP. This is the IP address we're going to use as our next up. Copy the IP and then paste the IP address here as our next up address. So that is what you need to do. So this is how to configure the route. So this is the first thing you do. You create the route. The next thing we're going to do is um, the service account. We've removed the other route that we have earlier, so we don't cause any confusion. So this is the route we're going to be using. So now the next thing we're going to do is to go to service account. Service account can be found under IAM, and then you click on IAM. So this is where you create service accounts. So we're going to create a new service account. Um, by clicking on service accounts and then click create service accounts. We're going to call this service accounts FGT-SDN accounts and service accounts. Now you can call it anything you want to call it. So this is what I want to use. So this is the full email for the service account. So the next thing we're going to do is to click create and continue. Now we're going to choose a role. The role we're going to use in this case will be owner. Click continue, and then we're going to leave it the way it is, and then click done. So the service account, which is this, has been created. Now the next thing after we create the service account is that we need to get the key from that service account. So if you click on the service account we just created, click on the service account, click on keys. Now we need to add a key and click create new key. We're going to use a JSON key for JSON key type. Click create. It's going to download the key, which is done, and then click close. Now that key that was just downloaded, please note that key. We're going to use the key. It's very, very important you note that key. All right, so we are done with the service account parts. The next thing we're going to do is to create or configure HA. To configure HA, which is high availability, we'll go back to the FortiGate. We have the FortiGate open already. And then now we begin to configure the HA. You could configure the HA from system, HA, then switch it to active passive. Notice that that's the only thing we have. We only have active passive. We do not have active active. Well, I'm going to configure the HA using CLI mode. So to configure the HA, config sys HA, set group name. Let's choose a group name SDN-training. Set mode is going to be active passive. Those are the two options that are available. There's active active, there's active passive, but active passive is the only mode available here. So now the next thing we're going to do is to set the heartbeat device to port. The heartbeat device is going to be port 3, and then we're going to set the priority. We're just going to say let's use priority here for the heartbeat device. Let's say 100. Then We're going to say set session pickup. We're going to enable that. We're going to set the session pickup connectionless. We're also going to enable that as well. We're going to set the HA management status. We're going to enable that. We're now going to configure the HA management interface. The HA management interface, edit 1. We're going to set the interface. Remember, our HA management is actually port 4. If you cannot remember what it is, minimize and then go to your network interfaces. Notice HA management is port 4. So that's exactly what we're doing. HA management interface, set interface to port 4. Then the next thing we do is to set the gateway for the management network. So if we look at the management, this is the management network. The first IP in the subnet will be the gateway. You can copy that and then come here, set gateway, pause and paste that, and then put the one there. And then we type next and set override. Now this override disable, you could enable it if you what this override does is this. If you want a particular device to always be the primary, even if when that device, especially when that device restarts, then you need to enable this override. What that means is this: if I set HA1 as my primary HA and I want it to remain the main one every time, what I do is to enable the set override. What that does is when HA1 restarts for some reason or fails and then restarts and then comes back online, and then HA2 was primary, the moment HA1 comes back online, HA1 will take over the primary role from HA2. But I'm going to leave it on disable just so we can use the two equipment we're paying for. So disable. This is very important. The priority. This is the most important part, which is the priority. The priority is used by the device. The highest priority is preferred as the primary device. So if we say this one should be 255, we're basically saying, okay, that is the highest priority. By default is 128. So if we don't set this up, so don't set this priority, it's going to be 128. So what that does is that this device, I want this device to be the primary device. You could use any number, just lower the other one, and you should be fine. The next thing we're going to do is to set the unicast heartbeats to enable. Set unicast heartbeats pair ID. Pair IP. Now this is going to be the IP address of the secondary FortiGates, which is going to be this, the port 3. Copy that, 205.3, paste that there, enter. Set unicast heartbeat net mask. Then the subnet mask that we're using, remember we changed it to /24, which is basically this. So we do that, then we'll type end. So this is what we just configured. Let's check what we just configured. So waiting for that to come up. Let's wait for that. While that is trying to come back up, we're going to go to the secondary one, do the same step. Config sys HA set group name, I think it's SDN, the training. You can always confirm that from the FortiGate 1. Well, we should be back online now. Good. So we can just say config sys HA and then show. So now this is what we configure, SDN training. That's training. Okay. So now SDN that's training. Then we'll set the mode to active passive. We'll set the heartbeat device port 3 we leave the priority as 100, that's fine. The next thing we do is set the session pickup to enable, set the session pickup connection list also to enable. Then we set the HA management status to enable as well. We configure the HA management interface. We click edit, we type edit 1. We set the interface to port 4. And then we set the gateway of port 4. The gateway of port 4, I'm on the first one. The gateway of port 4 is 192.168.210.1. Then type next, and we'll set override. Remember, disable means that if this is the primary, if HA2 is the primary and HA1 comes back online, HA2 remains the primary. That's what that basically means. Set the priority. Earlier we used 255, so we're going to lower this one. We can say 200, or we can say 189. It doesn't matter as long as it's between 0 to 255. Remember, the default is 128, so we can just say 209. It doesn't matter. So you can say 245. It doesn't matter as long as it's lower than the previous one. So this is going to force this to be the secondary. We're going to set the unicast app bit to enable, and then we're going to set the unicast have the peer ID. So the peer ID will be the port 3 IP address of this FortiGate, port 3, which is 205.2. Copy that. Then we're going to set the subnet mask as well. Set unicast at bnet mask, which we're using /24. Now, when you're done with that, you type end, and that is all you need to do to configure HA. Now, if you then go to what's it called, the primary one, we could actually type, let's end this, show sys HA. Now, show sys HA tells us the what's it called, the configuration. So this is what we have. If you go to the secondary one, we may have lost access to the secondary one, which is very normal. It's a good sign the moment you configure HA on the secondary one, you lose access. That tells you, okay, it's most likely already established HA. Let's see that. We'll go to System, HA, and just click OK, and then see that. That's a good sign. So when you see this, you're like, okay, great. So notice this 255 becomes the primary, and then the 245 becomes the secondary. So this is the HA. Notice we do not have it in sync mode. One is synchronized, the other one is not synchronized. What normally causes this in this scenario is the subnet mask. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Now, next thing we're going to do is, let's see, we can keep refreshing that to see if it's going to synchronize, but we will have lost access to this. We've lost access, it's no longer coming back online. So you see that it's no longer coming back online. What you do, this is why we set the HA management interface. When you remember when we went to, let me just go back again to the compute engine VM, and then we went to the secondary device, we click edit, and then we went to HA management external IP, and we reserve an IP address for the external IP. So this is why we do that. So here, the HA management, the external IP, this IP here is what I'm going to now be using to access this secondary device, because I've lost access to the first one. The next I'm going to do also is, since I lost access to this one, I'm going to have to remove this on the external interface. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to change this to none. I don't need that anymore. So this is only done on the HA2, not on the HA1. You need this on the HA1, but on the HA2, you need to remove the external IP from ephemeral to none. That's very, very important. Or you make sure that the management has a static one that is reserved for it. So what we're going to do is when we come back here, we'll refresh. For HA2, you will notice that I no longer have two public IP addresses like on my HA1 where I have two public. So I'm going to be using, this is my port 4, which is my HA management, copy this. I can create a new tab or just paste it here, whichever one, but let's just paste it here. I just wanted to show you that that IP will now be working. That IP will lead me into HA2. Let's get in there. Great. So notice we're in HA2. So this we're able to access HA2 using the what's it called? Using the management interface. Now, if we go to HA, notice it's not synchronized as well. This is the secondary, which is the HA2. It's not synchronized. What you do to make it synchronized is go to network interface and set the LAN from this to this. Go to HA1 as well, set the LAN from this to this, and then set the WAN also from this to this, the WAN from that, from /32 to /24. Once you do that, we'll refresh, then you can see that we have the HA working. Is synchronized. So the HA is synchronized, but we're not done with this step yet. So we're not done with everything. We have the HA set up. HA is already synchronized and everything. The next and the final step we need to do is to then configure SDN connector. To configure SDN connector is a very straightforward step. Once we do that, we can then fail over using the SDN connector. So we're going to go over the step quickly because this video is getting so long. But yeah, what is the point of not understanding what you're doing? So now the most important thing is to understand what you're doing. So I try to make the video very short, but I like to make sure that I explain every step, what you can actually come across so that you understand what you're really saying, what you're really doing. That's why it's good to watch the video in the entirety so you understand the step-by-step process. So the next thing we're going to do is to configure the SDN connector. To configure the SDN connector, we're going to be using the security fabric. We're going to be using the external fabric. We're going to be using an SDN connector to GCP. So this is what we're basically doing. We're going to do it on the CLI. Now you could do it on the GUI. Just put all the information, disable this, type in the key, and so on like that. But we're going to do it on the CLI. It's the same step. So at this point, I'm only going to do it on. So I'm just going to go to my dashboard. Now I'm going to do it on the primary. So the SDN. So we're just going to do config system SDN connector edits. We're going to call this SDN GCP connector. Set the type. The type of connector that we have Azure, GCP, and so on. So we're going to set the type to what? GCP, that's what we're using. Then set the HA status to enable. Configure the external IP. Now, this is very important. This external IP is what we reserve here. Let's go back to the first one, the FortiGate, the HA one, the external IP. You need to note the name. The external IP will come here. The name we give it, this is it here, the external one, but the internal, the external one, the name we give it is ext-ip1. So we're going to go back there, we'll say ext-ip1. That is the external IP. We'll type in next and config route. Now we're going to edit. What is the route name we used the other time when we created the route? We created a route on the VPC route. The name of the route we use was fgt-sdn-routes, fgt-sdn-routes. So you could copy this name if you want. If you don't want to do a typo, you can just copy the name, go back there, and then paste that there. That's the route. Type next, and then the next thing we do is set the metadata IAM to disable. Then we'll set the GCP projects. Now, what is the GCP project name? You need to know your GCP project name. This is the GCP project. We're going to be using the ID. So this is the name of the GCP project. Copy that. Come here, paste it there. Let's see. Made a mistake somewhere. Set. Let me see. The GCP projects. Actually, yeah, I made a mistake. The command is config GCP project lists, and then we say edit, and then this is going to be the project name. So now we paste that there. So that is this. Then we then set the GCP zone list. The zone list we're using what zone? To find the zone, let's go out of that. We'll go to Computer Engine. We're using US Central 1C. That is the zone we're using. Copy that and then paste that there. And then we'll do next. We'll do end. Now we'll set the service accounts. Set service accounts. Remember, we created a service account earlier, so we're going to go to IAM service accounts. This is the service account. You can just copy this. So go here, paste the service account. That is the service account. Notice it's in full, and then press the enter key. Set the private key. Now the private key is the JSON file we downloaded earlier. This here. So we're going to open that file. Open the file with the notepad. Once you open the file with the notepad, you will see notice this is the projects. This is the private key here. Private key always start with a begin. So we're going to copy from here down to the end here. So copy this, put it on a new page. Now there's something I need to show you, which is, see all this /n. You need to use it to break to the next line. Every time you see a /n like this, just highlight it and break. Highlight this /n and break. So this is what you need to do for this to work. Please be careful. You're only highlighting just two characters, which is / and n. If you don't do this, if you don't do it this way, it's going to give you an error. So we'll remove that. So everywhere you see /n, you just do a break. It should be fine. I believe this can actually go to the back, or this can go back here. That's fine. So now, if you look at this very well, you notice it begins with the quotes and it ends with the quotes. So just copy this, copy, and then the private key, just paste it there, and then hit the enter key. Notice there was no error. That's what you need to do. And then type next, type end. Now, as you can see, we've replaced all the \n with the enter key. So if we minimize this and we go back to that connector, security fabric, external connector, notice we have an SDN connector. Wow! Notice it also tells you the status of the SDN connector, which tells you it's up. That's a good news. So now once the SDN connector is up here, the next thing we need to do is to go to the secondary and then see if we have the same thing. We'll go to the fabric connector, external connector. Notice we have the SDN there as well. We refresh that and it also says it's up. So that is saying up. We'll refresh that. Okay, good. So now notice we are having the HA not synchronizing. What I normally do in this kind of scenario is I probably just want to wait it out to see if it's going to synchronize. If it doesn't synchronize, then you can basically try to troubleshoot why your SDN is not synchronizing. Sorry, your HA is not synchronizing. But in this case here, let's say we've lost HA. It most likely happen when there's a change in configuration between the first device and the second device. So when the configuration are not really matching, that's what really happen. That's why you will have your HA most likely out of sync. So just waiting it out and then refresh it again, you will see that the HA will sync. It all you just need to just do is just wait it out. So because sometimes it's will just look through the configuration and see if it matches. So most of the time, as long as you did not make any change that you did not do on one device, as long as the changes was not made on device A, as long as the changes made on device A is replicated to device B, it should sync back. If that doesn't sync, just wait it out. That's all I have to do. All I have to do, just wait it out. So it's gonna come back, and if it does not, you could basically troubleshoot why is it not coming up. Check the HA, the hash, the HA sync to see the hash matches. If it doesn't match, you can basically recalculate the hash, and you should be fine. So now the HA is back in sync, and we have the primary HA, which is up for the what's it called, external connector. The same thing with the secondary HA is also up as well. So all we didn't have to do it on both devices, we just do it on the primary, and of course because they are in HA mode, whatever changes you make on primary will affect secondary automatically. So that's exactly what is happening here. So now we have the SDN connector already configured. The next thing we're going to do is to then fail over. To fail over the HA, currently this is the primary HA. You have two choices. You could basically just come here and reboot, or you could run a CLI command, which I like to do sometimes. So exec HA failover on sets. I think it's going to be the cluster ID is always going to be 1 or something like that. So let's see. No, I think it's going to be set 1. Sorry, set 1. Yeah, there it is. So then this command will trigger HA failover if you intend to. If this is intended for testing purposes, so you just say yes, that's fine. So now in this case here, it will basically trigger a failover. You can refresh the page. We can also come here. Let's go back to HA. We can refresh the page. So now notice this, the 245 is now the primary. 255 is the secondary. 255 is our HA1. HA1 is now the secondary because we basically just force the, what's it called? Force the failover. So that device will try and come back online, and when it comes back online, you will have what's it called? It's actually online. Sorry, I meant to say it's online. The reason why you can access it at this point is because this IP is no longer going to be working. You have to use the management IP. Let's go back to the management. and copy that management for this one is, where is it? FortiGate 1. Yeah, this one. And paste it here. Let's paste it here. So notice that. So it's going to be working on the management interface until you fail it over back again. That's when it's actually going to what's it called? It's going to what's it called? Go back to what it is. So you can change it again. Set sorry, exec HA failover on set 1. So then that would just basically trigger the failover back from the this HA2, which is the primary. The primary is going to switch it back to secondary. So if we refresh this, let's see that it's gone back to secondary. So this will come back online. So that's just the way this works. So it only uses one IP at a time. So you can always access it using the what's it called? The how would I put it now? The public IP. So this is how to configure SDN connector to use HA. This is how to configure HA using SDN connector on GCP. I really don't want this video to go too long. It's already gone over an hour. But the point here is one of the things that most people have, one of the issues most people have had to deal with is, okay, how about what can I be accessing the address and the firewall from a single public IP and so on like that? Yes, it's possible to access it from a single public IP. If you put it in the, if you want to do that, you can put it in the chat. I actually will respond to that to give you the steps on how to get that done. But for now, basically, whatever is the primary um, is what's it called? Whatever is the primary uh, will be the primary HA, and then if the primary fails, the HA will fail over to the secondary. You could also do the failover using reboot. So let's do the reboots. Once we do the reboots, let's see that. If we refresh this, you notice that the secondary is not the primary because we've rebooted the primary. So the primary is not going to be the secondary. So this is basically telling you the failover is working correctly. So notice we didn't look at policy, we didn't look at any of this, but because we're only focused on how to configure HA using the SDN connector. That is basically that at this point, because we're rebooting this. If we try to access that, let's see, notice that we'll come back here, login with the IP address. Notice that this is HA2. We're using the public IP address 237, which was actually the public address assigned to HA1 at the point 237 was assigned to HA1 at a point, and now it's assigned to HA2. This is what the SDN connector does. I was going to say you should put it in the comment, but I have the time to just put the video straight now so that you'll be able to see it. So basically, what I'm saying is this 237, which happens to be the external IP we reserve. If you go back to VPC, let me just show you quickly. VPC IP address, we reserve the IP address ext IP1, which is 237, this IP here. This is the IP address that is used by the SDN connector. So if the FortiGate 1 is offline, the IP address will be will be used by FortiGate 2. Notice at this point FortiGate 2 is the primary. If I restart the FortiGate 2, restarts FortiGate 2, I'm still going to be using the same 237 while that is restarting. And then if you refresh this now, as long as FortiGate 1 has boot, you remember we rebooted it. As long as FortiGate 1 is fully booted, that IP would now be used by FortiGate 1 because, of course, when you reboot one particular firewall, the next firewall takes over as the HA. So now in this case here, 237 is open. Now if you check this, HA1. which is the primary. So it's failing over to a single IP address as it should. I hope this video has been very helpful to you. Please comment, please subscribe. Tell me ways in which I can improve this. I'm trying to make sure that the video is not that long, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I explain all the features, all the settings, step by step. Not that I want to skip any steps. I want to make sure that you can see the step, each step of what you need to do, so that if you repeat the step, you can basically get this done exactly the same way I did, and then you can actually be able to deploy this in a normal environment. Now, why am I using an SDN connector for the failover? You could use an SDN connector for the failover, which is what we're using, or you could use a load balancer. So you could use a load balancer, you could use an SDN connector. The difference between using a load balancer for your HA and using an SDN connector for your HA is the failover time. The failover time for a load balancer is shorter than the failover time for an SDN connector. It's just maybe this one takes about 30 seconds and that one takes about 5 seconds. Not that significant, but it depends on what you want to do. So you could use an SDN connector for your HA failover in the cloud. You could use a load balancer for your HA failover in the cloud. I hope this video has been helpful. Please share this video. Please subscribe. I need more subscribers. I need people to encourage this channel to to grow by subscribing. Please share this video and then put a comment if this video has been helpful. If you have ways we can improve the videos, please put it in the comments. And like I said, this is an unedited video. Everything is basically the way it's happening. So that's why you can sometimes see some mistakes as well in the configuration or maybe in my statements, and then I'll basically correct myself eventually. Thank you so much again, once again, and have a wonderful day.